Hey you, I have made it to New Zealand, my country number 117. I'm still at the port here in Dunedin. I'll get back to that. And right beside me is a big container ship, so I'm sorry about the noise from that. Let's talk about what's happened in this week for me as a digital nomad. My name is Palle Bo, and this is the Radio Vagabond.
Meet Palle Bo, a full-time traveler and digital nomad from Denmark on an epic journey around the world. This is the Radio Vagabond.
Let me just move over to a table here on the cruise ship because I've got company this week, and it's my favorite travel companion, Cynthia, the famous, notorious Cynthia Globe. Welcome.
Hello, world.
Let me just adjust the camera here. And when I say adjust the camera, it's because this is both on podcasts where you can't see us. But if you want to see us and want to see what we're talking about, go to Facebook, the Radio Vagabond on Facebook, or on the YouTube channel. And if you're already there, well, hi. So, Cynthia, we've been on this ship for a week now.
A week? It's shockingly how fast it's gone by.
Yeah. It was a week ago that we sailed out of Sydney Harbour, and what an amazing experience that was.
Phenomenal sail out of Sydney Harbour. Has to be one of the most amazing cities to sail out of.
And we started backing out, and then we turned around, and then we went under the Sydney Harbour Bridge, where I just did the bridge climb, and you just did the walk. You didn't climb to the top.
I did not, but I can still say I went across it.
Yeah, and I can say I jumped off the bridge because when we were almost at the end, he said, "Okay, this is where the bridge ends. So if you want to be able to tell your friends that you jumped off Sydney Harbour Bridge, you jump off from there to there." So I did that.
Meaning you jumped, what, 1 foot on a level surface?
One foot on the levels, but I jumped off the bridge.
Okay, just want to be clear for the listeners. Yeah. You are alive.
So that means we're a little bit more than halfway through the cruise.
Yes, 12-day cruise on the beautiful Norwegian Spirit.
Yeah, and we started by sailing down to a place that I'd never heard of before called Eden.
Where there is a Garden of Eden.
Yeah, that was the first thing I asked when we spoke to a local and said, "Do you have a garden?" We do. Yeah.
It was incredibly hilly and very beautiful. It's right on what they call the Sapphire coastline, so we did a bunch of walking that day, walked up and around at different viewpoints, heard a national park ranger talk about having penguins rebreed in the area and rehabitating them there. It was a very beautiful place that I'd never heard of, and I would recommend people to go to because it's a beautiful coastline.
Well, it's a good thing we did the exercise because they serve some killer egg benedict here, so and we have a lot of good food here, so yeah. And we didn't see any penguins.
We did not. Usually they're out during the day when we're in port.
Yeah. So the next day when we came to Tasmania, we thought, okay, here's our chance to see penguins. So we actually, just to make the odds a little bit better, we went to a small town called
Penguin.
You can't make that up. And there we saw so many penguins on signs in the town Penguin. Every company had a name with something, Penguin something, and I saw 20 different ways of drawing a penguin on a logo. So, but no live penguins.
But there was a huge one right outside of tourist information. It was about 3 or 4 meters tall.
Yeah. But no live penguins.
No penguins for us.
But actually, I like Tasmania, and I thought, because we only spent a day there, and I thought this is such a doable little island, and I could see myself going back there and spending a longer time and getting really to know the island. For example, we didn't go to Hobart, the capital of Tasmania, and there's so much to see, and it's so easy to drive around.
And there are trains and other ways of touring as well, not just driving.
Yeah. And you've been to Australia before. Have you been to Tasmania before?
I have been, actually, to Burnie. So I was here in 2007 as part of a cruise on a Princess line, actually.
Yeah. Burnie was the port that we came into. Yeah. But you haven't been to Hobart.
I've not been to Hobart, and I'd never been to Eden before.
And from there, it was kind of strange, but then we went north again, and not continuing to New Zealand. We went to Melbourne, where I spent 2 weeks, but we managed to do two things that I didn't get to do when I was in Melbourne. But that was also thanks to you. You have you're very big in the couchsurfing community.
I enjoy meeting travelers through the couchsurfing community as well as through every passport stamp. And we were lucky that a friend of mine through couchsurfing, John, wanted to come spend the day with us. And he picked us up at the port at 9:30 in the morning and was with us until about 2:30.
And I think a lot of people, they think couchsurfing is just for a place to spend the night, but you can do so much more. And that's what you do the most, is do meetups and meet people.
Exactly. So this was just a different variation on that. I had posted what's called a public trip, and
Say that again?
It's called a public trip, meaning you post what you want to do, and then locals see that, and if they want to do what you want to do, then they write to you. So I wrote that we were looking for travel companions for a day while we were in cruise port.
And John, a local from Melbourne, he went above and beyond what we could expect. He came and picked us up, and you said that we would like to go to a tall building, we would like to go to a botanical garden, and yep, he took us to the botanical garden and walked around with us. Beautiful.
Yes, so he did a whole day for us. He planned several other stops and scenic places, and he told us about the different neighborhoods. He was a very passionate about Melbourne specifically, not just Australia, but passionate about Melbourne, which added to my experience wonderfully.
And he's like in his 60s, as far as I remember, and he said that he didn't travel much, but he kind of gets to travel vicariously by the people he meets, and he's hosted so many people from around the world.
Exactly. This is how he wants to interact with people, and he does it so well and so nicely.
Yeah. And then he took us to a skyscraper.
The Eureka Tower. It's the highest observation platform in the southern hemisphere of the world.
And it was so cool. Really a very nice experience. We went into the elevator and it went super fast. Do you remember how many floors?
88 floors.
88 floors. Yeah, and when it was going fast, it was like ding, 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 ding. So we got up there to the observation deck, and the views were unbelievable.
It's 360 degrees, all glass, and there are some areas you can walk outside and be in a fenced area where you don't have glass around you. So you actually circle the entire top of the 88th floor that way.
But the fence was not so thin that I couldn't stick my camera through it and get some cool shots of the view. Yeah, that was a great experience. And then after that, John didn't come with us. He was in the car, and we went back there and took him to lunch and had a very nice lunch with him.
I had Tassie oysters that I had missed the day before in Tasmania. They were very famous for their oysters there, and I had not had the opportunity in Tasmania. So they were on the menu where we were at Beachcomber in St. Kilda's Beach. And so I had the most amazing oysters. I was actually thinking when they arrived, they were small, and I'm used to big oysters from the state of Florida. They were the best oysters I've ever had in my life.
So that was day 3 of the cruise, and then we took to sea and was sailing for 2 days in order to get down to New Zealand. And the first stop wasn't really a stop. We were not able to leave the ship, but that was really, really a bucket list item for me.
Essentially, the reason I wanted to come to the South Island, because I've not been here to the South Island. I've been to the North Island of New Zealand and Australia before in 2007. But here on the South Island, they're most famous for their natural wonders. And of course, what they call sounds, which are actually fjords, are the most famous of their sites other than their national parks. And we had a whole day in 3 of them.
Yeah. And we went into 3 sounds. And since I'm a podcaster, I was curious what are the sounds, but they actually call Milford Sound the most famous of them, the sound of silence. And it was so quiet and so peaceful, and it's so big and so deep that the cruise ship is able to sail into that fjord. And when we got to the end, we turned around and got out, and then a few hours later, we hit the next sound.
The only sounds that I heard in Milford Sound was the sounds of the waterfalls, and I don't know if it would be heavier waterfalls in the spring because it's fall time here, but I personally think we saw at least 100 waterfalls, and there are only 2 permanent waterfalls in that entire sound. Yeah. But I'm sure we saw 100 waterfalls at least.
Yeah. And the water is so deep, and the mountains on the sides are so tall, and it's. You were out here on this balcony we're sitting on right now that day for 10 hours straight, more or less.
I sat in one of these chairs in some portion for 10 hours. I only went inside to get a bite to eat once and do very basic things you have to do once in a while.
Yeah. And then a few hours later, we got to Doubtful Sound. I think, was it Captain Cook that said, nah, that is doubtful?
In 1770, Captain Cook actually named it because he thought it was doubtful that it could be entered. So it was really interesting to me as we entered each of these. I would have not guessed that we could go into them. It is not terribly visible when you're out in the Tasman Sea how you can enter these little channels, but then they open up and they're just huge and magnificent.
Yeah. And the last one, a few hours later, again, was called Dusky Sounds. Yeah. And that was beautiful too, and you got to see something that I didn't get to see because I was at the other end of the boat, but you were here.
I was, and it is the largest fjord in all of New Zealand. The largest sound, if you use their local term for it. Maybe we should tell people what the difference is. So the difference is that a fjord is created out of glacial action as compared to a sound that would be eroded essentially by natural forces. So that's the difference. And Dusky, the last one we went to, is the largest in all of New Zealand. It is 40 kilometers by 8 kilometers, and so it's just massive. There's actually 3 separate channels that make up a section of it. And it's also the most remote. There is no way to access it by road, and there are no airstrips. So you literally, after you leave the first sound that we did, you don't see any sign of civilization. You don't see any roads. You don't see any telephone poles. You don't see cell phone towers, nothing. And it is so pristine and just fantastic.
Yeah. See, that's why I brought Cynthia onto this episode, because she is a bit of a geek and apparently also a bit of a rock star because you're with sunglasses here.
Well, we're looking into the sunset, but here, hello world.
And today was the first day that we got to set foot on land here in New Zealand, and we are in a port in the southwestern part of
Southeast. And we're on the side of New Zealand that is in the Antarctic Sea. So this is your country count number?
117.
Woohoo!
But I say southwestern, you say southeastern?
Yes.
Southeastern part of the...
Australia, New Zealand, we crossed under the South Island of New Zealand. We are on the east side.
East is over here.
Yeah, that's where we are.
I will look that up.
And
maybe the southeastern part of the. We can agree that the South Island is more western than the North Island.
It is, and more south, but they call it the South Island.
Yeah. Never mind. We spent a wonderful day here. I will get back to you on that. We spent a wonderful day here, and we went to see what I didn't know was right here, the steepest road in the world.
Shockingly, the steepest, and I've been on a few steep ones as
and
have you.
I thought it was San Francisco, but San Francisco is way down on the list. But this is right here, and it's called Baldwin Baldwin something.
Baldwin Street, after the man who named it.
No, not that Baldwin.
No.
Another Baldwin. He was he a mailman or
Writer
a newspaper?
or publicist? Newspaper, yes.
Okay.
Newspaper, that was.
Oh, he wasn't the guy delivering the newspaper, and he thought, okay, I hate this because I have to deliver the newspaper. It wasn't. He was a newspaper guy. That's why I brought her along. Cynthia Globe, a bit of a geek, does the research.
And then we went.
And then we went to another botanical garden, and stunningly beautiful, really, really nice.
In an hour, we did the tour they call Walk Around the World. So we saw African gardens and Asian gardens, Chinese pavilion, Tunisian, and obviously a lot of things from Australia and New Zealand as well. So it was a fabulous day, and the weather's spectacular here.
Yeah, and some cute birds.
Lots of birds.
Yeah, lots of birds. And that's it for this episode. An update for what's happening now. I'm in Australia. No, I'm in New Zealand. and we'll continue being in New Zealand. We'll head up the coast to. Will we head west or east?
We're just going to Littleton tomorrow.
Yeah, it's close to Christchurch, and then we'll continue and end up in Auckland in 6 days or so. So more to come.
Luckily, the captain's in charge, not Pele, based on his directions today.
My name is Palabo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya. I have to look at a map now.
I'm 100% sure it must be okay. Because think about it, we crossed under the South Island.
Yes, we did.
Under the South Island?
Yeah. So,
what direction is
so
it?
are we more west or east?
Well, this is the west coast of New Zealand. That's the east coast of New Zealand.
But I didn't say the east coast or the west coast. I say that we are in the southwestern part of New Zealand.
This corner is southwest.
The center, if you take east and west, is here. So we're more west than we are east.
Then they should call this the West Island, which they don't do.
No, it's the South Island, and the South Island is more west than the North Island. It's the southwest, and we are more.
Even the climate zone and the name of the season, everything are based on which side of New Zealand you're on, and you are correct about this.
I am.
The east side has the Pacific Ocean and the Antarctic Sea, and the west side has the Tasman Sea. And yes, it's lopsided, but it is still west and east.
Yeah.
Meaning the sun still rises in the same place and sets in the same place.
I know.
Which is why the sea is behind us and the sun is setting over there, because that's east and west.
Yeah.
Radio Vagabond. Produced by RadioGuru.co.uk.